providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith. We recently launched a 1-800 line where people can call. We have 2 days a week. We can call to get information about mental health services in your area as well as receive prayer. The information line is active Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10:30 to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. There's a free 1-800 number that you can call at any time during those times. If you call after Tuesdays or Thursdays or any other day, we will not be able, no one is there, but we will leave a message. You can leave a message and we'll call you back. This is an information line. It's not an emergency hotline. It's not a 911 line. It's strictly for information, to provide support, to give you somebody else to talk to kind of bounce ideas off of, and also to receive prayer. Again, you can find out more information about that by logging on to our website at igbatt.com. And what I wanted to do today, wanted to talk about, this was a post, I entitled it Rod Wave Inspired Post. Rod Wave is for many of us who didn't know, is a young up and coming rapper, not up and coming, a young really popular rapper. I don't know that much about him, but I heard this song, actually a couple of songs that I think that really speaks to with some of the things that some of the young people that I come in contact with are going through. I think right now we talk a lot about mental health issues. I know in the news right now there's a lot of talk, especially in America, about mental health problems among the youth. Well, I'm going to tell you, among some of our youth, it has always been that case, especially when we look at young black boys, young black girls, young inner city or poor youth. Mental health has been a problem for a long time in our communities. What happens is it looks differently. I think when we talk about our youth, especially minority youth or African American youth or poor youth in general, it's like the same thing, the same behaviors that we see in adults, we see in the children, in the sense that when you're so focused on trying to survive, right, you have to worry about how you're going to eat, you have to worry about your family, as far as physical abuse, you have to worry about sexual abuse, and you have all of these other stressors. It's really hard to focus on mental health issues, even as an adult. So I always like to say, it's not that people don't care about mental health issues, it's that when you're poor, you have so many other things to focus on that sometimes mental health issues themselves become a little, kind of lower in issues, or you're not as concerned about them as much, or you look like you're not as concerned about them as much. Well, this a lot of times what happens with our youth who are dealing with, you're going back and forth to school, you don't know whether you're going to make it back home or not. I was just thinking a few weeks ago about just the number of youth that I knew just last year in 2021. Welcome to 2022. But youth I knew, I started counting, I stopped at 7 people that I knew had gotten shot just in 2021. We're talking about young people under the age of 25. So you're talking about if you live in that type of environment and you have to focus on that type of stuff. You got to think about how you're going to eat. You have to think about the drug in your area. You have to think about the gangs. You have to think about, what's going on even in your own home. A lot of the homes for our young people are not safe. Homes should be a place of safety, should be a place where you have parents that love you, that feed you, that nurture you. But for many kids, that is not the play. Doesn't happen. For many of our children, they're in homes where they have parents who curse them out all the time. You have parents who don't cook, who don't feed them. You have parents who spend money that should be going for the kids on other things. You have parents who physical abuse, sexual abuse. So for many kids, home is not a safe place. So you have all of this stuff kind of going on, and they're right now with the pandemic. So a lot of our kids have been struggling for a long time with mental health issues. The thing with the trick with youth is that when you look at a child, a young person, let's say under the age of 18 or whatever, some of the behaviors that you see are common, are common to just being an adolescent, or common to being a youth. The anxiety about school, concerns about whether people are going to like me, depression, just that kind of stuff. Because again, as we talked about before in some of our broadcasts, there are signs and symptoms that are associated with each mental health disorder. Now, just because a person has signs and symptoms of a mental health disorder does not mean that they have a disorder. It could just mean that they have signs and symptoms. Because in order to have a quote-unquote disorder, there are certain signs and symptoms that have to be present for a certain period of time. So as we like to say, a person can be sad or use the term depressed and not be clinically depressed, right? So the person can be anxious and not have an anxiety disorder. So again, we want to make sure that we're clear and letting people know that not all signs and symptoms mean that you have a mental disorder. But we do have some of our children who are, because of just the things that they're going through on a day in and day out basis, they are struggling and have been even before the pandemic. Right? So if you're telling me now that some of the kids who had, great parents and great homes and everything was going, fairly well for them, they are now struggling. What do you think about our kids who are already struggling, who are already dealing with bad schools, who are already dealing with a lot of crime, who are already dealing with poverty? And I like this song. Again, I don't know how much I can play or how much you can hear it. Let me let you know right now, it is explicit content. I'm not going to play it all, but I think it really speaks so much. Let me go ahead. Thanks to this person here, because I think they... Okay, I thought he did it here. There's let me just do this. I'm sorry. And the lyrics of the song go, if you're hearing this, it's too late. I've been writing this since Tuesday. Now, Rod Wave himself said he's fine, nothing like that. But if you're hearing this, it's too late. I've been writing this since Tuesday. Today, Friday, that means tomorrow's doomsday. Tried to fight the pain, but it ate me alive. We have a lot of people. Well, let me just read it all the way through here. Sad to say, I lost the battle against my mind. We have a lot of our young people who feel like they're in a fight with their mind. And then he goes on to say, you should be happy for me, homie, no more suffering. But I just want to read certain parts of this here for you. Hopefully, for years, no, this is what I want to read. In they face the whole time begging for help. For years ready to die, but scared of death. I tried to pop a couple pills, they just made me sleep. I left the house without my gun, and he says the N-word, faking their beef. I poured a half a pint of wok in a 2-liter soda, stuck as whatever he said, couldn't move, I thought it was over. I told the world how I was feeling, my worst decision. And he goes on to kind of talk. But I want to kind of go back to one of the lines here. The whole thing just kind of struck me. But when he talked about in their face the whole time begging for help, for years ready to die, but scared of death. I mean, that just... I guess touched me, because when I listen to this and I read this even now, I think about the number of our young people who are in this same boat right now, who think about this. It's kind of like there's an ambivalence about death. We have a lot of our, many of our young people, and I've had a few who told me this, I'm not going to make it past a certain age. I won't be here past 21 or past 25. And sad to say, some of them, that has come to pass. It has been true. But when you're talking about, and then he goes on to say, and this is the part I really wanted to, the whole thing was great, but I wanted to talk about this. For years ready to die but scared of death, he said, I tried to pop a couple of pills, and then the pills didn't work, so he left the house without his gun. Okay? So leaving the house without his gun, and again, assuming that I don't have my gun, that means I'm open if somebody wants to kill me. And then I took mixed up some drugs, in hoping that I would die as well or not feel the pain, but that didn't work. I woke up. So a lot of times, I wanted to point this out, when we talk about suicide, especially among certain populations of our young people, it's not necessarily a direct hit, right? They may not necessarily go and take a whole bunch of, a gun per se. Usually what some of the young people will do, is they'll try several times, right? They'll try several times, and then they'll do things that looks to be impulsive. So when you talk about suicide with a young person, and I know I'm going to bring it all together. I didn't write any notes down, but when you talk to a young person, you're talking about you kind of have to ask, right, direct, but also keep in mind what you may see a lot of impulsivity. You may see them, doing strange accidents. You may find them jumping in front of a bus, or you may find them, like I said, maybe taking drugs, because I don't want to feel the pain. You may find them just doing things that to you may not make sense, but they're hoping. Okay, they're hoping not to wake up. Some of them are hoping that if I jump out in front of the traffic at the right time, the bus will hit me. So if you ask them, they may say, no, I'm not. But when you look at their behaviors, it kind of lets you know that you have to dig a little further. Okay, let me go back here. He said, okay. Now I'm going to read something else here. It says, I've been this way for a while, lost as a child. Mama always telling me, smile. She's so in denial. Still wishing I had some help. What makes a N person run off and blast itself? So one of the lines in his song, and his song is called Rod Wave Nirvana, it says, I've been this way for a while, lost as a child. Mama always telling me smile, and she so in denial. Still wishing I had some help. And then WTF, what makes and you know what that means, a Negro run off and blast himself, okay? Let me share something with you, some mental health statistics, and I'm going to try to, if I can, kind of bring it all together. When we talk about mental disorders usually begin in childhood or adolescence, okay? So they usually start early. Untreated disorders in youth, okay? Let's say the youth doesn't get help, one thing, they struggle with it. Like you say, use the word struggling. They struggle with the symptoms, or they might find other ways to deal with the symptoms. Now, they may not know what's going on with them. They just know that something is going on with me. They just know that, hey, I've been this way. What way is that? I've just been depressed. I've been, I've never fit in. I've always felt different, okay? But when they don't have people around them to help them to give voice to what they're feeling and to put a definition, some words to what's going on with them, they struggle. One of the things that untreated disorders in youth can lead to significant problems as adults. Okay? What type of problems? School issues. We see a lot of children, or they drop out of school because they can't concentrate, or they're just not feeling okay in school. They have a lot of behavior problems. You see a lot of behavior problems with some of these children in school. Unemployment problems once they get older, ready to work. You see a lot of young adults have problems forming healthy relationships. When you talk about untreated mental illnesses, there is a cost, there is an impact. The sooner we can get our children, our people into or become aware of mental health treatment, or become aware of what mental health symptoms are, the better it is. Now, when we talk about youth, as I said, a lot of mental health symptoms you can start seeing symptoms when a person is young, right? Now, when a person is young and they may know something is going on with them, they're going to start to self-medicate. I see a lot of adults, right, with drug problems, heavy drug problems that started as a youth. How did they get started? They got started because the drugs, the substance that they were using, helped them deal with their mood, helped them to deal with how they're feeling. So over time, as they started using the drugs, they started feeling better, and they built up the tolerance for the drugs. So it started in youth. So it's not about, for some children, It's not that they started using drugs or they use drugs just because somebody else is using it or they want to look, want to fit in. And that's true with some people. But with some kids, they start using drugs because it helps them really feel better. It helps them to deal with the symptoms. It helps them to concentrate. What they don't understand is that the long-term consequences of these drugs, right? They don't understand the long-term consequences. Or even if they see it in their friends or their family members, youth never think that they think they're invincible, right? Just like we did at that particular age. So when you're looking at a young person with untreated mental illnesses, like I said, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle in school. They're going to have problems with relationships as they get older. Many of them have problems, again, with relationships, employment. You see a lot of them going in and out of prison or having problems with authority. Just a lot of different issues. Not the case for everyone, but many of them do struggle. They may find ways to cope, and the ways that they cope may be unhealthy. Unhealthy coping mechanism like using drugs. Unhealthy coping mechanism like driving real fast. They become thrill seekers and all this type of stuff. What are they doing? They're trying to feed what's going on the inside. To me, the biggest problem, all of these things that I mentioned, untreated disorders in youth can lead to significant problems, and I listed them. The biggest problem for me, or the biggest, just that really hurts me, is that untreated mental illnesses leads to a continual struggle. You have people who are struggling for no reason, right? You have children, if you have an untreated mental illness, you don't have to struggle. There are people out there that can help you. There are people that can talk you through it. There may be medications. You don't have to take medications forever. Some people don't take them. Some people have to take them for a little while. Some people are able to get through with talking to someone. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be a therapist. It could be a peer person. Sometimes it does have to be a therapist. But the thing is, you have to get those things out. Rod Wave is able to share things. I don't know, what he's going through or if he even diagnosed. I'm not saying that. But in his writings, he's able to share some things, to articulate some things that I don't know if he went through or other people have gone through as well. So when you talk about Mama always telling me to smile, she's so in denial. When you have a youth, you want to be able, first of all, as a parent, you want to try to get as much information you can. When you take your child to the pediatrician or, to any other doctor, you want to begin to ask questions. You want to notice what's going on with your child, right? You want to ask them, how they're doing. You want to begin to notice. You want to spend time. And I know that's difficult because some of our children don't have parents who can do that for them, right? But here's the thing, what children do have, and I'm going to talk about that as we go on, there are certain things that are called protective factors, right? Our youth may not have great parents. They may not have great homes. They may not have great schools. But studies have shown that if you can get at least one productive adult who can help as far as to provide that protective support, that person can make a difference in that child's life, okay? So we're going to talk more about protective factors. Now, let me talk about some of the risk factors for a child or youth developing mental or substance use disorders, okay? Biological factors play a big part. Early childhood trauma, okay, we know that's a big thing, including exposure to abuse or neglect, may increase a person's likelihood of developing a mental disorder. So abuse or neglect. Think about it. A lot of our children are exposed to abuse or neglect. As I said, a lot of these homes are not safe. A lot of these homes are not welcoming. How did you feel if you have a parent that was always cursing you out? Okay, you had a parent that always telling you that you're not going to be anything, you're not going to amount to anything. And some parents think that's okay, but they don't understand what they're doing. So early childhood trauma, inconsistent caregiving, stressful life events, such as moving. Okay, divorce can be stressful. Loss. So when we talk about death of friends, you see some of your friends dying. Or, you live in a home where your parents are always moving you from one shelter to the other or from, one place to the other. Okay? Learning disorders or academic difficulties may lead children or youth to feel bad about themselves. If I'm in school and I can't read well, and I'm in a class with other kids who can, or they might be laughing at me, or I may just feel bad about myself. That's a problem. Involvement in child welfare or juvenile justice systems, or experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty may contribute to the development of mental health challenges. Notice I didn't say disorders, I said challenges. Okay? Involvement in child welfare or juvenile justice systems, or experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty may contribute to the development of mental health challenges. Of course, hormonal changes, okay, we know that, may make youth more prone to emotional extremes. Adolescents, particularly biological females, become more prone to depression and anxiety. Again, we're talking about around PMS. They're not used to it yet, so learning how to regulate those emotions could be an issue. Of course, orientation toward peers, the wrong peer group or an unhealthy peer group. Young people have a lot of concerns about their appearance. Can lead to increased depression and anxiety. We have all this social media telling people how they're supposed to look, right? Experimenting with alcohol and or drugs. Increased risk taking may result in major adverse life events, which may lead to the development of a mental challenge or disorder. Driving drunks, which can lead to problems with the law. Increased independence. Community factors such as poverty and violence. Okay, all of these type of stuff can lead to our youth having mental health concerns. And we talked about trauma. I mentioned that. Physical abuse, sexual abuse. I talked about that. Domestic violence, alcohol or drug exposure. You see your parents using drugs all the time. Having a household member in prison, because when your parent is away, especially if it's a parent, that leaves the child uncovered. So when you have a child, the parent's responsibility is to cover that child, right? When the parents are not in that place, they're not covering that child, you leave that child vulnerable to anything, to drugs, to pimps, to prostitution, to other adults who are not, who can take advantage of them. So again, all of that can provoke anxiety in a child, okay? So I wanted to talk about what I'm doing. I want to I'm going to go back and forth and talk about that song, but that song I think speaks to so many, as I said before, so many feelings that our young people are going through. I want to appeal especially to you adults who may not, number one, who may not think that youth really have mental health issues, or two, don't think, that maybe they can just snap out of it, or three, you're just not paying attention. I want you to, if you're listening to this, start paying attention to the youth around you. Start asking them how they're doing. Start be aware of how you treat them, about what you say, okay, and how you speak to them, right? How it influences them. Be aware. You might think it's funny and cute to curse out your kids, and they may even shrug it off. But that's not a good look for a parent. But it doesn't feel good for the child. Okay, as the adult, take a look at your child's environment. And I mean, take a look, in your mind. Okay, is there a lot of crime? Is there a lot of violence, right? Is poverty an issue? Or is this child in and out of the foster care system in cases where, it's not your child, or maybe a niece or a nephew? Is this child in the home where there's always chaos, there's always noise, there's always parties going on, there's always people drinking, smoking, people going in and out. The poor child can't even get their homework done because there's so much. And then when they go to school, you wonder why they're falling asleep and they're so disruptive. As an adult, take a look, commit to, one child, right? If you don't have any children, or even your own child, and just take a look at what it's like for that child to live up in the environment, or live in the environment that they're living in, right? Knowing friends who are being killed, okay? Or not definitely friends, but just people who are being murdered and being killed. What is that like for that child, okay? Ask yourself these questions. And as an adult, once you ask yourself these questions, then ask yourself, okay, what can I do to make things better? What can I do to make things better? If it's a child that's not mine, and I see, this home life is not that great, are there any programs that maybe I can introduce the child to? Are there any neighborhood community events or church events or whatever that's going on, that I can help to get the child out of the environment. If I am a parent, I can't help that we're poor, but I can sit down and talk with a child and have a conversation about that and how that impacts not just him or her, but how that impacts the whole family. And then, hey, yeah, we're poor, but we're going to stick together. We're going to get through this. Now, I know this doesn't feel good, but we're going to do what we got to do. All right? Having the conversation, sometimes you may not be able to make things better, per se, for the child, but by having that conversation and just letting them know that, hey, I see you. I understand. I know this is difficult. I know going back and forth to school can be challenging. This is 2022, right? 2021... 2020, so a lot of people were talking about police reforms. One of the reforms they talked about was removing police officers out of some of these schools. I forgot what they're called now. Resource officers. And my thing is, some of the news people were talking about how some of these resource officers were maybe heavy-handed, and I'm not debating that, or that how some of them were maybe arrested kids or roughed up kids that they shouldn't have, not debating that. So a lot of the politicians, in response to some of the outcries, response to police violence, they thought it would be good to remove some of these police officers out of the school. Some or some just a few officers, and some schools have none. But I thought it was interesting is how many of these politicians didn't ask the children. Because a lot of these children liked having police officers or resource officers in their schools. They liked it because it made them feel safe. But no one asked the kids. So in some of these schools, when you go into a class or a school where it's gang infested or a gang territory, and now you don't have the safety at home. Now you don't have the safety at school. It can be more anxiety provoking, right? I was working with one kid, and young person, and he was coming into our clinic for mental health services. And one day I saw him, just run across. He just just kept running, and hopped on the bus. And I asked somebody, why is this? What's going on? Is somebody chasing him? And we realized our mental health clinic was in an opposing gang area, and he was scared, so he had to, as soon as he got out of our program, he would run and get on that bus. He didn't want to stay in the neighborhood. Needless to say, we kind of worked with him once we found out what the problem was to see if we can help him out. Get something maybe closer to home. But what I'm telling you, a lot of this stuff is real. This is not TV that some of these kids go through. You may not be aware of it, but you may not be aware of it. You may be a great parent, and sometimes it's not about some of these parents and the poor parents. It's just that they don't have the resources. Okay, so let me say that. But you may not, like I said, be aware of it. But some of our kids in some of our neighborhoods are really struggling and going, as we say, going through. Okay, so we have to be there. We have to do what we can as just good human beings, as adults. We got to be aware. Some of these kids, people will say they don't listen, and that's true. They're not going to listen. Some of them won't. Some of them will, curse you out and all that kind of stuff. We do know that, but sometimes you just got to tell them anyway. You got to tell them anyway that there's somebody out there who cares. That there's somebody out there where you can get help. You'll be surprised how kids respond to kindness if they've never had it, or if you're honest and you're sincere and being who you are, which is, I know, is to be a good person. But let me read some protective factors. Okay, let's talk about resilience. Okay, children are able to develop resilience. They can be very resilient, right? You take them out of the wrong situation and put them in a better situation, they can bounce back. Resilience is the process, and I'm reading this from the National Council for Behavioral Health. Resilience is the process of adapting well during and after adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Resilience is an individual's ability to bounce back from difficult experiences. Okay? Children can be resilient, okay? We want to make sure that we put things in place that will allow our children to become more resilient, okay? What are some of those things? Protective factors. As I said before, protective factors or those things are just that. Okay, protective factors are things that can mitigate. So even if a child is in a home where an abusive home, school, if it's a great school, that school can be a protective factor because that school can be a place for them to feel safe. Okay, if they do have a parent who all they do is curse their kid out all the time, having someone who it could be the neighbor who speaks life, speaks positive, can be a protective factor. Let me read some of these. Some protective factors are, and I'm reading this from O'Connell. It says, and I'm going to put all this on our website, igbatt.com. It will be on our website. Parental and or caregiver and or familial support. Okay, that's number one protective factor. Parental factor or caregiver, if they don't, the parent is not available, it could be a caregiver or some type of family member. It could be an aunt, an uncle, it could be a niece, a nephew, it could be any other family member can provide that protective factor. It can be one of the things my cousin does. She'll do in the neighborhood, her and her daughter, they'll just randomly, they usually do it during the holiday, but they'll just randomly collect clothes or collect stuff for different kids in the neighborhood, and they'll just give them out. They'll give them out along with food, and that's just something that they do a couple of times a year. Book bags they'll give out to them along with resources, and just be there to talk to them, right? Feeling close to at least one adult. Like I said, children, if they have at least one adult, one healthy adult, okay, that one adult can make the difference. That's why we're encouraging, or I'm encouraging, especially when we look at men, if you're a male, a healthy male, mentally healthy male, emotionally healthy male, and you can donate your time, you can volunteer, you can be a mentor, that will be so helpful. And you don't necessarily have to be doing anything that great. I worked at a boys group home, a young men's group home, and at this group home, the owner, all of her counselors were men, right? And these weren't necessarily licensed people. They were just guys, men, regular guys from around the way, so to speak. And they spoke so much life into these young boys, and they were able to provide something that these young men didn't have, and that was just having a man around. And it wasn't like they went out and did a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes they would just talk about things that I probably wouldn't want to talk about, but they would just talk. They would just sit around and watch TV. It wasn't anything like, hey, they had to go to a football game, we had to go eat, or we had to do this. No, it was just being present. Okay, so again, don't think you don't have anything to offer, because if you're a man who, and you a good positive person, that's enough. Sometimes it's just hanging out with these guys, just talking to them, just listening to them and letting them talk to you, because you'll be surprised. Once they know, young people know that you have time. See, a lot of times adults don't have time. A lot of times you're talking to them and you are on your phone. You're talking to them and you are distracted, right? A lot of times we say to our youth, I try to talk to them, they're on their phone. But sometimes they try to talk to you and you're distracted. They try to talk to you and you talking over them. You're not listening. So you can, and also don't expect that just because you feel like you want to talk, that they want to talk, right? You have to wait. Sometimes with young people, you have to kind of be patient. Sometimes you have to, wait for that right moment. Sometimes you have to just be present and then allow them to talk. Because they're not going to open up if you always, if you're not willing, if you pretend like you are. But again, you want to be able to be that one adult. Okay, if you can, be that one safe adult that your young people, any young person can talk to, okay? Healthy self-care practice, getting enough sleep to feel rested. Positive self-esteem, when our kids can feel better about themselves. Okay, that can be also a protective factor. Feeling of control in their own life, and this is for all of us. When we feel out of control, it kind of it goes against, or it kind of chips at our mental health. We become stressful, we become anxious when I have no control over, what's going to happen in my life. I have a friend of mine, a friend with her granddaughter, who is not in a good situation, but she has a social worker, right? And I had to go to the house a few weeks ago to drop something off, and this little girl hadn't seen me in like forever, right? Since she was a baby. I think she's like 4th grade now. She saw me. She thought I was one of the social workers coming to take her away. And again, almost made me cry because she was just, her countenance just had fallen. She was just so, just became upset. And we had to let her know. And cause I didn't know what was going on at first, but it took us a minute. My mother realized, she said, you know what it is? I think, and we called her name, she thought we were coming to take her away, and we called back and, to have a conversation with her. But this child, because she's in the foster care system, has no control over her life. Okay? Social workers can come anytime. A judge can say, you can be at this home, you're in this group home today. Things are safe. Your parent is sober today. Things are going great. And then by the time you come home from school, they're high. Your mom told you that she's home for good. She's not going to do anything again to put her back in jail or cause her to leave you again. And then 2 weeks later, she's back in jail. Okay? So again, when you don't have that control over your life, you're always on edge. You're always anxious. Okay? Spirituality. Okay? Spirituality and religion can be protective factors. Both of them. People like to think that there's something wrong with religion and spirituality is better. No, one is just the practice. But both of them are protective factors. Both of them can be helpful. Religion itself can provide a structure. It can provide that safety when you know what's happening, right? And that those practices, religion can provide that for you. Sunday school, having like I said, that structure, young people's church, or as long as providing that is healthy, spirituality, all of these things can be protective factors for our young people, and they have been protective factors. When we look at African American youth, for example, or black youth, and not even just African man or black youth, but through all of the cultures, but I'm speaking of African American and black youth, our religion has always been both a curse and a good thing and a bad thing, which that happens with everything. But our religion has always been a protective factor for us. Even during the slavery time, we would come together. Sometimes church was the only place where we could come together. Church was the only place where we can, take a good bath, get dressed up, and come to church and then feel good about ourselves, right? It was a protective factor. Our churches used to be our political hubs, right? Our churches, we would come together and eat. We would come together and talk about different things. So that was a protective factor for us. As we begin to mix in or blend in with the larger community, that has become less and less. But spirituality and religion, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, sports. Okay, all of those things can be a protective factors. Avoiding negative coping strategies such as using alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs. Like I was sharing before, when a lot of our children, when you talk about untreated mental illnesses, again, they start many times when a person is young, they don't know what's going on. They start developing unhelpful coping mechanisms. Sex makes them feel good. Alcohol makes them feel good. They don't know what's going on with them. They just know I feel better. I feel good, right? I'm not as depressed. Not really understanding that what they're dealing with is an untreated mood disorder or an untreated depression or untreated bipolar, that if they were diagnosed, we can get them into the right treatments, okay? So now, with these unhelpful or negative coping strategies, you start off using alcohol to help you feel better with your mood when you're 14, 15, 16. Now you're 30, 32, 33, and you can't stop. You've lost everything because of your gambling addiction. You lost everything because of your substance abuse history. Now you're homeless. right? Because you had an untreated mental illness or poorly treated mental illness, you didn't know it, you started using unhelpful coping mechanisms or strategies, and now those unhelpful coping mechanisms have taken over your life. Okay? High monitoring of the child's or youth activities by a parent or caregiver. For example, keeping track of where the child or youth is and who they are with. This is a protective factor. Some parents, you don't know where your children are, unfortunately. You let your kids go with anybody. You can't trust everyone, okay? You can't trust every pastor, every deacon, every Sunday school teacher, every high school teacher, football coach, Girl Scout, babysitter. You can't trust everyone. You need to be paying attention to what's going on with your child, okay? You need to monitor what's going on. You also can't trust sometimes older kids. You leave your younger kids in the presence of older kids. Sometimes things can go wrong. You need to be aware of what's going on with your children. You need to be checking in. Okay? Regular school attendance and academic performance can also be a protective factor, right? Because if kids are focused, they have something they need to do, that they have structure, that can be helpful. Strong support system. Having a strong social support system is important for all of us, but especially as youth. Getting your kid involved in some type of activity, okay? Some type of sport, music lessons, I don't know, swim lessons, art class, something, okay, where they can develop additional support systems is so important. Let me watch my chime here. Okay, we're doing good. Feeling a sense of belonging in school or community. Having constructive recreation. This is important for children. Again, we're talking about protective factors, okay? A sense of safety. Sources, I talked about faith, hope, and cultural traditions. Having those cultural traditions is so important because it can provide you with a sense of safety, and our children with a sense of safety. It can provide them with, and even if that's just getting around and having a barbecue, every week our family get together, we watch a game on TV. Every month we get together and we do A, B, or C. We get together, we play in cards or something. Something that can provide that structure for the kids, right? Providing opportunities to strengthen coping skills such as stress reduction. Okay? And I talked about, again, a feeling of belonging. Research suggests that positive mental health can result when the support of adults tip the scale in such a way as to enable children and youth to acquire the ability to plan, monitor, and regulate behavior and respond to adversity and thrive. This is from the Center on the Developing Child. So what he's saying here, when you have an adult, when you can teach your children, okay, teach them to problem solve. Teach them to kind of identify, okay, this is what the problem is. These are the not strategies, but this is what the problem is. These are ways that we can solve the problem. Let's look at the pros and cons of each one of these situations. Get them to understand that. Get them to also to understand that things are going to happen in life. Teach them how to regulate their behavior. Yeah, it's okay to be angry. Okay, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. You have a right to be angry, but it's not okay to get mad and take off all your clothes on the football field, right? Because you're upset with the coach. How else could you have handled that? Okay, how else could you have handled? Okay, if you're upset with the teacher, okay, let's talk about that. Why were you upset? What happened? Get them to problem solve. Because here's the thing: you and I know if you're over a certain age, right? You know that life has problems. Life is full of challenges. Life is full of situations. And when we have our children, because they never develop the ways to cope, healthy ways to cope, the only strategies they have are unhealthy, that when they go through life, they deal with things in an unhealthy manner. Right? So we want to teach your children, teach your young people that you are around how to problem solve, how to think, okay? Because when you can do that, it teaches them, when you can teach them how to problem solve, it helps them to realize that they do have some control. It helps them to realize that everything is not just, they're doing this to me, that I can make some choices in my life, that I can, move forward, that I can, express myself without getting angry, okay? So that's so important. Also, I wanted to share, because some stress is good, right? We can't go through life. We're all going to have stressors. Same thing with our children. Like I said before, children may not always talk about their feelings readily. So you're going to have to kind of maybe be there and give them an opportunity. I wanted to share something though. Okay, I don't have it here. Which is no problem. I'll put it on my website. So again, youth mental health challenges are serious. Okay? Youth mental health challenges are serious because if they are not treated, they can lead to adult mental health challenges. Right? We don't want our youth to have to struggle, quote unquote struggle. We don't want our youth to have to not be able to talk about their feelings and what they're going through. We don't want them to develop negative or unhelpful coping mechanisms, because those coping mechanisms, while they may seem helpful for the moment, are not helpful in the long run. Right? We want them to kind of get help. We want to pay attention to our youth, and we want to ask questions. What I wanted to share this, just a couple of fact or fiction things. Okay? If you ask a young person about his or her suicidal intentions, you will encourage the person to kill themselves. Some people think that, and that is a myth. Asking someone directly about their suicidal feelings will often lower their anxiety level, and act as a deterrent. Your openness and concern, your willingness to talk about it, will allow them to kind of talk about their symptoms. Okay? Self-harm. We have a lot of our young people who engage in self-harm. Self-harm itself is not necessarily, is a symptom. So self-harm, we're talking about cutting. Self-harm could be, as we talked about here, leaving without your gun, because the expectations, I don't have a gun, my enemies will probably kill me. Self-harm could talk about pulling your hair out. It could be scratching. It could be driving real fast on the expressway. It could be being around people who treat you bad. It could be mixing drugs, which he was talking about, lean, which is something that the young people use. So it's all kind of things when you talk about self-harm. Self-harm is a sign that something is going on, that we need to have a conversation. Again, as we move into 2022, I think it's important that as adults, and I know we ourselves have a lot going on, but that we stop and really talk to our young people and just kind of reconnect with them. We've been home for the last year. Many of you have been home with your children for the last year and a half, so you can at least have that conversation with them, or be aware. Just pay attention. Sometimes you just sit quietly and just listen to their conversations. Listen to the things that they talk about. Listen to the music that they're listening to, okay? And sometimes that will help. Let me share this number, 1-800-273-8255. It's a suicide prevention line, but it's also a line that will allow you to ask questions, that will give you somebody to talk to. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for young people between the ages of 10 to 24. Okay? We sometimes underestimate that because of they're young. Why should they think about suicide? But they think about suicide because there are a lot of things that they're going through. We mentioned the trauma. We talked about the environment. We talked about things going on in the home. So a lot of things can add to that. So some of you may say, well, there are some. I've dealt with trauma. There were a lot of things going on in my home, and that's true. There are some people who are able to, who can overcome There are a lot of people, because of their natural ability, so to speak, they have other things going on with them. Like I said before, we talked about protective factors. It's easier to overcome trauma, overcome what's going on in your home when you have healthy protective factors. When you have that one adult, when you have that healthy Sunday school or that healthy church, when you have that good school, when you have that resource officer that provides safety, when you have other support systems, when you're involved in sports. All of these things can do that. But what we're dealing with, a lot of our young people, especially today, they don't have that. So all they have the trauma, they have the ongoing disruptions or chaos in their home. They have the chaos in the neighborhood. They have the people, the shooting, the guns going off in their neighborhood. They have the poor schools. They have the fighting in the schools. They have the police. They have other students. They have all type of stuff going on, and they have very little protective factors. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. Now I want to play some of this song. I'm not monetized, so I don't, whatever that means, I won't get in trouble, I don't think. I hope that heaven's real and one day we can reunite. And don't be crying for me, I lived a wonderful life. I went on tour and seen the world and met all of my fans. I wish I could do that shit again. They plenty money, wrote my will, my kids is good. Hopefully they don't grow up so misunderstood. I moved my mama out the hood and bought her a home. Even though me and her husband, I hope you can hear this. I bought all my niggas brand new cars and watched them flex. Wanted niggas to know I loved them before I left. I bought a brand new house in Houston, left it to my pops. Take the fam with we all we got. In they face the whole time, begging for help for years, ready to die, but scared of death. And that's the line I was talking about. He said, I've been in their face basically the entire time. That means I've been dealing with these symptoms. I've been here, okay, but no one saw me. I've been depressed as a child, children. I've been depressed. This is what some of your children are saying to you, or young adults are saying. I'm in your face the entire time, Mom. I'm in your face the entire time, Dad. I'm here, Pastor. I'm here, Deacon, the entire time. I'm here, big brother, big sister, auntie, uncle, concerned neighbor. I'm here the entire time. I'm in your face. I'm in your face with my depression, with my anxiety. You see the kind of home I'm living in. You see me going in and out of foster care. You hear the gunshots just like I hear the gunshots. But no one cared enough to ask me how I was feeling. I want to play that line again. I hope you can hear it. Ready to die but scared to death. Said I tried to pop a couple pills, but they made me sleep. Okay? Said he left his house without his gun. Right? Again, the whole idea, I don't have my gun now, you guys are beefing, this is the time to get me. Then he goes on to say, talked about the lean that they used, right? They mixed it, hoping to drink this, that, and not wake up. But instead of, I woke up, he was saying that instead of not waking up, I woke up and I couldn't move. So that didn't work. I apologize for the lyrics, but I wanted to... But I wanted to play it. I wanted to play it. I hope you can hear it. Let me play this line again, because I think it's so... I like it. In their face the whole time. I've been in your face the whole time, Mom. I've been in your face the whole time, Dad. I've been in your face the entire time with my depression, with my anxiety, with my wondering if I'm going to make it to school safe or not. And no one ever asked me. No one ever sat down. You never took the time to kind of give me your undivided attention. You're more on the phone than I'm in the phone. Kids scrolling on the phone. Okay? become parents, adults, become aware, become educated about mental health symptoms, become educated about mental health disorders, become educated about mental health resources, understand the role of trauma. As I said before, take a look, even if you don't have any children, right? I don't have any kids. I work with children, but I don't have any kids. But I'm telling you, I stop and I pay attention. What are they dealing with, right? You don't have to necessarily ask them at first, right? Just pay attention. I just told you, I just shared some things with you. You probably will have to slow it down because I know I talk fast. I apologize. But trauma, neighborhood violence, right? Poor schools, sexual abuse, physical abuse. You have some of these homes where the kids, the parents work every day. The parents are doctors, lawyers, and the entire time the dad is raping the daughter. Okay? So this is not a poor person's issue or it's a rich person's issue. It's just that it's a problem that we all have to become aware of, okay? She just has low self-esteem. How did her self-esteem get so low? What words did you put in that were put in the atmosphere? Whether by you, whether by the environment. You can control what your kids watch, okay? You can control their phone time. You can control what they see on the videos or whatever. So if they want to watch TV, they want to watch video, okay, we're going to sit down together and watch something positive, okay? I'm playing this again. In their face the whole time, begging for help for years, ready to die, but afraid of death. So I want to die, but I'm ambivalent. And this talks about, when we talk about suicide, a lot of times people, is not that they say they're ready to die, but they want help. They want, which goes back to what we were saying, you have to ask the question. You have to go to someone and say, hey, I'm noticing that lately you've been looking a certain way. What's going on? Let's have this conversation. But know that the first time you ask them, they might not say, no, everything's fine, because they know you. They know you ask and you really don't want to know, right? What do you mean I really don't want to know? I ask. Well, you say you want to know, but then when they come to you, you're busy or you don't make time. Your children should be your number one priority. Right? Should be your number one priority. You need to make time. I don't care, you are a Supreme Court judge and you got 100 cases before you. You need to pencil in some time for your children. I don't care if you're a surgeon. If you're a medical doctor and right now you got the pandemic, everybody needs you. You have to realize your children are your number one responsibility. Your children are not going to be children forever. You want to spend some time with them, even if you got to take them with you. Okay, put on the mask, you go with me to the office, and we're going to talk while I drive. Whatever it is, whatever the case is, whatever you have to do. Well, you're going to sit here in the office, whatever. We're going to spend some time together because it lets your child know that I value you enough. I value you enough to know that I need to make time for you. And as I said before, if you don't have any children, there are a lot of other kids that you can mentor. There are a lot of kids out there who are begging for help who don't have a supportive person in their life. And he said he thought it was over, but it wasn't over. All it did was make him feel paralyzed. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward through this because I know some of you, oh my God, if you can hear the language. I've been this way, lost as a child. Mama always telling me to smile. So sometimes you notice things about your child, okay? Instead of telling them, and again, this is not an indictment on any parent per se, because you do the best that you can, right? Well, come on, smile, okay? What's going on? Why are you not smiling? What do I have to do? Having that conversation, okay? People like to have the right words to say. There are no right words to say. This is your child. This is the person that you love. Right? And really there are no wrong words. Now there might be better words to say. Unless you're cursing out your child, that's never an okay thing to do. But your child knows you. They know just your personality, right? So when you're talking to your child, you'll be surprised how much grace your child will give you, even if you don't say the right thing. You come in and say, you know what, dang, I really shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I'm learning to be a parent just like you learning to be a child. What I was trying to say, I just want you to know I love you. I just want you to know I'm here for you. I just want you to know I don't know what really to say, but I see you're hurting. How can I help? What can I do? And you just give the child a hug. Sometimes it's just doing that for your child, okay? So don't get caught up so much on the words. Yes, when we teach class and we talk about, you want to go to the person and say, hey, I'm noticing this about you. I'm noticing that you're not sleeping. I'm noticing that you're up walking around. I'm noticing these changes. Is everything okay? That could be an opening. But if you don't remember that, you don't know what to say, just start the conversation about something, right? So again, I titled this, he says, wishing I had some help. And then he said, what the F would make a Negro go off and blast himself. Untreated mental illnesses can make a person go off and quote-unquote blast himself. Trauma. And it's not, I'm going to say trauma, it's the unhealed trauma. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not just the trauma, it's the unhealed trauma, right? We haven't dealt with it, okay? And let me say this, there are a lot of people who love Jesus. There are a lot of Christians, people who are saved. Just because you're feeling this way doesn't mean that you're not saved. Because remember, salvation comes through, accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So you can accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. But just like there is a time, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, there is a time for... we go through the not consecration. We learn to take on Christ. We take on Christ and lose more of who we are as we get more of Him. More of us kind of dies, so to speak. When we talk about mental illnesses, the healthier you get. Okay, the more you get the help that you need, the more, whether that's medications, talking to someone, and just because you take we talk about medications or seeing therapy, doesn't mean that we're saying that don't pray, don't fast, because you should pray, fast, and all that stuff if you're a Christian, if you're a believer. We're not saying not to do those things. And what I'm saying is that in addition to those things, you may have to do other in addition to praying and fasting. While you're praying and fasting, if you need to take medications, you may need to take medications. People may say to me, well, some of these people are just faking. Well, if they're faking, then they don't have a mental illness. We're talking about people who have a mental illness or mental health symptoms is what we're talking about, okay? We are talking about just like people who have diabetes take medications, just like when women have have to give birth and they have a C-section, you have to go see a doctor, right? So it's the same thing. Mental illnesses is what we're talking about. We're talking about brain illnesses. So when I'm talking about untreated mental illness, I'm talking about not just signs and symptoms of a mental health disorder, but we're talking about a mental disorder itself. Okay. So again, I just really wanted to share this. It was a Rod Wave inspired post. The song is Nirvana. I think I'll put that there. Again, the song itself, I don't know how you can get a clean version of the song, because it's not a clean version, but maybe you can take it and listen to it with you and your young person, and just have that conversation, because if it's not them, somebody they know is going through what's on this song. So again, It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach. I just wanted to share this post and wanted to start the new year really encouraging our adults, just talk to your young people, and really encouraging our young people, if anybody happens to hear this, you are more than a conqueror. The things that you're going through, the fact that you're still listening, the fact that you're still here, the fact that you tried these various things and that it didn't work is an indication that you're supposed to be here. Life right now might suck. It might not be a good thing. You may not, you're being abused. You don't know whether you're going to make it back from school. You're afraid. You're anxious. But I'm here to let you know that it can get better. We like to say it's getting better all the time. It can get better. It gets better with change. Change is what makes it better. Prayer, reaching out, God, come into my life. Jesus Christ, help me. And what He's going to do, He's not going to come and take away all the problems, but He'll give you a strategy. As you pray and seek Him for a plan, a strategy to make things better. He'll give you a plan or strategy to move forward. Young person, you may not have the greatest parent. You may be in a crummy home environment. But I'm here to tell you, that there are a lot of adults, many adults, who grew up with parents, grew up there. One particular lady talked about being sexually abused at the age of 5. Her mother was a drug dealer, sold her out to drugs, or pimped her out and sold her for drugs. She's now one of the big real estate developers in Louisiana. Okay, you have people who are, grew up in, gun violence. They grew up in, hearing gun violence and grew up with their friends getting killed, everybody going to jail but them, and now they're medical doctors. So you have lawyers, or you have people who are just regular people. I'm not saying that doctors are not regular, but I don't want to always make it seem like you could be this big thing. The fact that you graduated high school is a big accomplishment. Okay, so there are a lot of people who grew up in worse situation. You got one parent that's lousy. Some people have two. Okay, you may say, well, I have two parents that's lousy. One parent is beating me. One parent is sexually abusing me. My school is lousy. They talk to me like crap. Every day I go to school, I get beat up. I can tell you, there is somebody out there who has a story worse than yours, and you can make it. Whatever your story is, whatever you're going through, know that God sees you. Well, you may ask the question, well, if God sees me, why is he not making a change? Why is he not making a difference? One of the reasons why, understand this, the reason why sometimes bad things happen to good people, is because the world that we live in, there is a perfect will. God had a perfect will, and if we would follow, a lot of these things wouldn't happen. But because we're not following, we meaning human beings, mankind is not following, there are some consequences to the choices that we've made. And some of the consequences that we've made have opened the door for sin. What is sin? Rebellion against God. Rebellion against God that leads to all types of things, that leads to all types of problems. So that you are not the problem. If you're being abused, you got a mother cursing you out, know that you are not the problem, young person. That adult is the problem. The society is the problem. The environment is the problem. Okay? And that as you turn to God, as you turn to Jesus Christ, and you begin to ask him to help you, he will. He'll send the right person in your life. He'll give you the strength that you need. He'll give you a strategy, even at your young age, 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever your age is. When you turn to him, he'll give you a strategy, a way out. That way out could come through a person. He'll give you an idea. He'll give you the strength you need to get out of that situation, to endure it. Okay? You are not designed to be somebody's sex toy, somebody's prostitute. God made you for a wonderful purpose. He had a plan for your life. What happens, the enemy has come through bad